Welcome to the Business of Family, the podcast where we explore the stories, challenges, and opportunities of family businesses. I'm your host, Tammy Buss, and I'm a family business survivor, and I'm also a family business advisor. In this show, we'll be talking with family business leaders and experts to bring you insights and inspiration so you too can survive your family business journey. Whether you're a founder, a successor, a professional, or just curious about family business, this podcast is for you. So today's guest is Jeff Jans. So Jeff, I'm really pleased to have you here. So Jeff is an EOS implementer, and I want to know your journey because you weren't always an EOS implementer. How did you become an EOS implementer?
No, so the story there is entrepreneur since the age of 13. There's a picture of me selling products to my two younger sisters around the kitchen table with a briefcase and the old dial-up black Bell telephone. But no, seriously, I got into the automotive business. That was the first part of my career. I worked for Mercedes-Benz, Jaguar, BMW, always in after sales, so managing the customer experience. That's where I first really got to know the value of teams, the value of relationships, and having a positive work environment that spilled over then into customer experience, because that was really what I was tasked to do in the luxury car market. That was really important. But in 2007, I transitioned from luxury cars to the garbage business, actually. A friend of mine invited me and said, we need a general manager at our facility, at our place. And so I started there in 2007 as a general manager. We had, at the time, 30 employees. And by 2011, I became a partner there. So partner and COO. And then just learned all the challenges of a growing business. By 2022, we were just short of 200 employees, and we actually, so we had 4 partners at the time, and 5 in total, including me, and we sold the business in 2022. But prior to that, growing a business, just a lot of the challenges and the pains of doing that, it was when we decided to implement EOS was in 2020. And so that's how I became familiar with EOS, and when we sold, it was just a natural fit for me to become an EOS implementer. I stayed on for a couple of years as we transitioned the company that bought us. I stayed on as director of integration, but then I knew I wanted to get out of kind of corporate. We had 900 employees at that time, and my passion is really small to medium business, driving that value and getting everybody on the same page with where we're going as an organization.
So we'll take a step back and say, what is EOS? Because I think for our listeners, I've mentioned EOS in the past, but give us a definition of what EOS is, or even what EOS stands for.
Yeah, so it's a loaded question, and try to keep it as succinct as possible. But EOS is an acronym for the Entrepreneur Operating System, and so often when people hear that, they think it's a software. It's not software. It's an operating system. And essentially what we do in EOS is we bring vision, traction, healthy into a business. Vision from the standpoint of where we're going and how we're going to get there. Traction from instilling the necessary accountability and discipline so that no matter where you look throughout the organization, everybody's acting on that. And then healthy just means we want to function as a healthy, cohesive leadership team. And we say, as goes the leadership team, so goes the rest of the organization. Eventually, no matter where you look throughout the business, everybody's acting on that vision. Because as we say also, a vision without traction is hallucination.
Right. So what is the role of an implementer?
The EOS implementer, as I do, is as a teacher, facilitator, and coach. So teacher from the standpoint, I teach you all the EOS tools, the practical tools of EOS. Facilitator, in contrast to being a business guru or an advisor, I'm not that. I'm a facilitator in the sense that I facilitate to the answer that's already in the room. All of our clients, they know their business best. But as a facilitator, I'm there to facilitate to the answer that we need to get to for the greater good of the business.
And I understand that because I'm a family business advisor, and that's what I do is facilitate family conversations. And the answer is already in the room, but it's just a matter of getting it out and then acting on it. And so what size of company would an EOS be appropriate for?
So target market for us is 10 to 250 employees. So that's the size. In terms of target market, where the leadership team is growth oriented, they're more afraid of the status quo than they are of change. they're willing to be open, honest, and even vulnerable to an extent, because we really need to have that healthy aspect to work both smart and healthy in our businesses.
Yeah, and I can understand, it's difficult when you're bringing in something new. It's like, oh, another system. And I can tell you that we implemented EOS in my previous company about, 13, 14 years ago, something like that. I can't even remember now. And at the time, I remember my COO saying to me, we do not need anything else. We have so much here. And I'm like, can we just have the fellow in to chat with us, to tell us a little bit about, the process? Because I've heard about this system. And in fact, I'd heard about it at Strategic Coach. And there was about 50 of us in the room. And our coach at the time, Lee Brower, said, who's on EOS? And everybody's hands went up, and mine didn't. I was the only one in the room whose hand didn't go up. And so immediately at break, I Googled, what's EOS, right? And I'm like, oh my goodness. So then I started chatting with my coach mates, and it turned out this program was exceptional, and how they, had growth and brought together their team. So anyway, I convinced her to let us bring somebody in to talk about it, and the rest is, they say, is history. So I thought you've heard me talk about this on many podcasts, but I thought we should probably have a little in-depth to understand how it can help businesses, talking about the size of the business and in family businesses in particular that we deal with, and how that can help. So in your experience, and I know you haven't been doing this for a long time, you've got tons of business experience. How did EOS help, or how does it help?
From a family perspective, yeah. So it's funny when you were saying you were sitting around the table and 10 other people were on EOS and you weren't. That was
49 other people.
Oh, wow.
I was the only one. There was 50 people in the room.
So
I was like embarrassed. I'm like, should I put up my hand? But what if they ask me a question?
Wow. Yeah. So it is very
big US based. So I was in Chicago. It was a big US based audience. So
you just reminded me, because in my Tech Vistage group, we were at a Christmas luncheon and everybody was sharing, what the highlights of their year were. And four of the people in the group, a lot smarter than I was, said they were just implemented EOS and it was working really well. And I said, I got to check that out. So that's kind of my story too. I heard about it from others and had to check it out, and we finally implemented it. But in terms of how it helps a business, specifically related to family business even, the business that I was in, we had 4 partners and there was a lot of family dynamics, and it worked very well, but we were very open and honest and willing to be vulnerable as well through that journey. Since then, going to the collaborative exchanges with other implementers at EOS, it's a huge element of what we do, because over 70% of businesses in Canada, as we know, are family businesses, right? So we have to find a way to navigate them in a way that brings healthy and joy to our work still, without compromising the family dynamics. So from that perspective, I think EOS specifically brings a lot of help around right people, right seats. And so when we think of employment policies, we say, it doesn't matter what your last name is in the business. We need right people in the right seats, right? And we're very kind as we do that process, but we do because quite honestly, we can't achieve a great vision without great people. And so we also, anyways, in my practice, it's come up quite often where I've had to explain to clients, even in the 90-minute meeting where I make the introduction, is to say, listen, there's a leadership team in the business and an accountability chart. And over and above that is the owners and the family potentially. And we need to have a clear line of communication around each. Right. So when we talk about the 3 circles of family business, we're talking about the family, the business, and then the favorite spot to be is the owners, and try to navigate both, right? So,
well, it's nice to see that you talk about that in EOS, because that's the foundation of everything we do, is understanding that 3-circle model.
Yeah.
And how, again, by implementing different systems into your family business, how it all correlates. It all comes together, right? It's for the betterment of the family, the business, and the ownership.
Yeah. So really, when we step back and we analyze, okay, so in the family, what's the objectives of the family? What are the rules of engagement for the family? Now let's talk about the business. What are the rules of engagement for the business? And obviously, we're running for-profit businesses. And so the importance of people right seat as we drive towards our core focus, our purpose, cause of passion, why, and what we do. But we need to make money at the same time, so we can't compromise on that. And then, like I said, the owners are in the unique position of trying to navigate the two. But we have clear lines, rules of engagement for each. Now, just to be fair, those three circles are not specifically referenced in EOS so much as in my own experience. Right. I've come across that through other great implementers. We just have an amazing community in EOS that we learn from each other, and so I learned that from another implementer in my journey.
So what's the starting point? I mean, we talk about how wonderful these programs are and what we need to do, and but if someone was like, okay, well, how do I even start this? What is the whole process of understanding how it can help? And, really, what if I am a group of 10? Is that too much? No, like, how will it help me? So can you give us a little detail on that?
So almost regardless of size, like it depends on your growth trajectory. If you're a group of 10 that you're looking to grow, it's definitely something you should consider if you're a business owner in that segment. So how does it help us? Well, we break down the 6, and Gino Wickman, the founder of EOS, did a brilliant job at this in breaking down the 6 key components, right? So, and those 6 key components, will just run over them really quick to provide context. So vision, people, data, issues, as in what are they? Let's fix them, knock them down, make them go away forever. Process and traction. What we say is we begin at the end of the journey. We put your business in the center, and we say to the extent that we strengthen those 6 key components, we're going to strengthen your business overall. And we follow the EOS proven process in the sense that it's a 1-pager we share with our clients, potential clients, in our 90-minute meeting we call it. We share that with them, and we go through a series of session days. And the first one is focus day, where we teach hitting the ceiling. We do the accountability chart. We set up rocks. What are the most important things we need to get done? So we hit the ground running, really. And then we work on the meeting pulse and scorecard, because we want to run the business on objective data. And so from there, we move into vision building day 1, vision building day 2. So, and in that, we answer those eight questions, as in, what is your core values? What is your core focus? What's your 10-year target? Your marketing strategy? What's your 3-year picture? And then we bring it down to the ground and say, okay, relative to all that, what's your 1-year plan? How are you going to get this done? Because that's often what's really challenging in business, is to bring it down to the ground. So we put our 1-year plan together, and then we further break it down with 90-day goals that we call rocks. And finally, the final issue is the issues list. Right. We get really good at long-term predicting both long-term issues, and we fix the short-term issues as they come up in the business to make them go away.
Now, you hear the term rocks all the time. Can you share a little bit about how the term rocks actually, I love the story about how rocks became the name. Can you share that?
Yeah, I sure can. So Stephen Covey, in the book 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, talked about rocks. And to the extent that you have a glass jar and that you put the water, sand, and pebbles in first, the rocks will never fit. You're always dealing with those day-to-day challenges, right? So he said that's where the term came from. To the extent you put the rock in first, the water, sand, and pebbles are always going to find a spot.
Yes, right? I just love that, because when you think about it and how you start to layer stuff, it's a puzzle, right? And you can't get this, you can get everything in the glass jar, but if you don't put them in the right order, you can't get everything in the jar. And I think just even understanding the term rocks was a big aha moment for me, to go, that we ultimately have to get to this rock. We need to get this completed. All the other stuff we'll do along the way, but the goal is to get that thing done, that big thing done, and all the little stuff will just, help that happen. But if you go right for the rock, you forget the little things. It never happens. You never complete the project, right? It just keep going, and going.
Yeah, in my experience too, that was a big aha moment when we implemented EOS. It was around understanding that as human beings, we do lose focus, and 60 to 90 days, we tend to drop off. And so they have a great example in the US.
60 to 90 days, I think sometimes by the end of the week, I'm out of focus.
Right. So exactly, right. And so we use a good example, I believe, picture a crew cutting their way through a jungle, and to the extent that you don't have anybody in the tree pointing them in the right direction, we need to be up there saying, okay, let's get focused, people. We need to stay on track. Let's not get distracted by all those little things. We need to stay focused. And I think that's the power of EOS, is really understanding the power of being laser focused on our goals.
So your role as the teacher, so if you've got a company of 10 or 20 or 100 or 1,000 or whatever the number happens to be, and you're a family business and you're maybe struggling with, how to get things accomplished, how as the teacher, how do you teach them to do the whole process? So you said you have a couple of days, but how does that whole process work?
Yeah, it really flushes out, for lack of a better term, in teaching the foundational tools. So again, like Gino did a brilliant job at this in terms of 6 key components. Like EOS is very simple. 6 key components, 20 tools, 5 foundational tools. What we say is, to the extent that you strengthen those tools, the issues will just jump to the fore. Those challenges and obstacles are going to become very obvious to you. And so we train leadership teams to bring it down throughout the whole organization. But we train leadership teams really to smoke out issues that exist in the business and identifying the true root cause and make them go away forever. So to the extent that you identify it, and we say, ask 4 or 5 times, like, what is the root issue that we're actually trying to deal with here to make go away before we move to discussing it. But every tool inside of EOS is designed to simplify our business and to smoke out those issues. So an example would be, like one that involves us to be open, honest, is around people issues. Oftentimes, we don't want to talk about that, especially if it's family. We really don't want to talk about it. But if the root cause of the issue is a right people, right seat, Jim Collins' terminology, then we have to smoke it out and we have to deal with it for the greater good of the business, because we are a for-profit business, and so to the extent that we do not do that, we're not setting the bar high enough as an organization.
And I do think, again, we haven't chatted about this, but I think it's important to understand the visionary's role. And sometimes you think as the leader or the founder of the business that it's your responsibility to run these meetings and get everything done. And I love the fact that they've actually taken them apart. So you have a visionary, and maybe I'll let you talk about that role, and then the implementer role as opposed to the integrator role, which I know I got always a little bit confused on that at the beginning, but I knew what I was trying to say, but I could never always get the right terminology. Do you want to give just a little example of that? Because I think, again, as a family business owner and as a founder, sometimes you feel that it's your responsibility to run all of this.
Absolutely. And there is a lot of pressure that comes with it. So just a little tip, implementer, integrator. So integrator, in the business. That's
good.
So,
but see, I was very good at the beginning. I did call you the implementer as opposed to the integrator.
That's it. Yeah. So we get tripped up on that.
We're going to have a quiz at the end of this podcast.
There's so around visionary and integrator, that dynamic duo there, right? So visionary from the perspective that it's the 20 ideas, creative problem solver, love to stay at 30,000 feet, not get in the weeds and not have the tough conversations, but still wanting to get things done in the business. That's where the integrator comes in. Just harness that human energy and just beat the drum of the organization, that profit loss business plan. So the dynamic duo of the visionary and integrator, as we see in many businesses, is so powerful, right? And from the perspective that the visionary has a lot of pressure on them and they want to get things done. But that's where we go back to staying disciplined, laser focused on what we need to do the next 90 days, and not get distracted by all the shiny stuff that visionaries often do. Like oftentimes a visionary, and I've had it and experienced it, visionary will come into the meeting and they'll have another idea. And they're like, we should do this now. It's like, no. The integrator is the one who says, all right, let's get back on track and focus on this. We can park that for long-term issues. We can talk about that next quarter when we get together in the room for a day. But as of right now, we're focusing on this for the next 90. And so that's where the visionary and integrator really play a role. And now when you combine that with an owner who's a visionary, they're bringing it back to family, owner, and the business. So if you have an owner who's also the visionary, we teach them from the very beginning we draw a hard line between the accountability chart, as in the leadership team of the business, and the owner. And we say, okay, when you step into the business, you take your owner hat off and you put your employee hat on. And so we don't do any end runs. We don't exert our owner power in the meeting. In the meeting, you're an employee.
Right.
And the way we manage that further is by having offline meetings, so that the integrator and visionary can be online on the same page as the owner at all times. But that should happen outside of the leadership team meetings, because otherwise it causes disruption in the business. And we get these 90-day spikes because we're just going all over the place.
Right.
And it's just not good for the overall benefit of the business.
And so, having now understood and being part of EOS and in your previous business history, do you think that this would have helped earlier on in your career with the different organizations you went through?
You know what? I've learned actually since becoming an integrator and spending so much time on mastery, we call it, and more reading and learning from each other, the community. To answer that question, like if I had known what I know now 20 years ago, wow, I would have seen the issues when they were there and been able to identify the root cause of them, and been a much more effective leader, team player, and for the overall good of the business. I think over the years, the lack of this knowledge has probably cost me a lot of money.
Yeah. Well, I think it's the wheel spinning. I mean, that was the one thing that was, an aha moment for me, was understanding, like you say, the issues. And issues aren't always bad things. They could be a positive thing that you want to spin. But it's understanding that there's a process for this. And it almost takes the responsibility away from you as the owner or the leader to make those decisions, because the decisions are really made for you by following the process. Here's our end game. How are we going to get there? Here's the tools we use to get there. So it's not you, it's the process. Right. So it takes you. I mean, don't get me wrong. There is some chats that have to go on when you're looking at the wrong people in the wrong seats.
Right. Yeah.
But from a from a leadership perspective, it really does make it foolproof almost.
Yeah, I love that you brought that up, because it's almost therapeutic in a sense for owners and visionaries who have 100 ideas a day, and they're always worried, are we doing the best? Yeah, and they're always concerned we're doing the best we can. But I can tell you firsthand, like I had the session 2 weeks ago, and we went through our focus day. And so we got all of our big issues on the table. We got our 90-day rocks, just set out, our accountability chart is all cleaned up. We're running it on objective data. And the owner just turned to me at the end of the day. I was like, I feel like a load off. I just feel so much better. Like, I know we got a lot of work to do, but now I know exactly what needs to be done.
And so as a teacher, what is your engagement? Where do you go in? How do you help? You can't be there every day. What is the system or the process for engaging an EOS helper, implementer, integrator? Like, what is the process for that?
Yeah, the process for that is we teach the 5 foundational tools at the very beginning. And so we actually start with traction before we do vision. And there's a reason for that, because we do want to hit the ground running in terms of helping them to facilitate, because we really want to work ourselves out of a job. We don't want to be I'd love to be your implementer for 10 years, but there really shouldn't be a reason for that, to the extent that you master the tools.
Right.
And so that's my job. I say it's my job to keep it simple. The 6 key components, 20 tools, teach them in the best, most effective way, so that the leadership team has a full grasp on them and can roll it out throughout the rest of the organization. As goes the leadership team, so goes the rest of the organization. So, yeah, we do that by following the EOS proven process around teaching the 5 foundational tools, and then the balance of the 15 over 2 years.
Okay.
We ask for a 2-year mental commitment, and over that time period, we teach the leadership team everything.
I think we used it for 3 years, so we might have been a bit slower on grasping the concepts.
Well, some people use it for 3, 4, or even 5. They just love the outside influence in the leadership team room.
It really is nice.
Yeah.
I got to tell you that, yes, you do a great job teaching the systems and the tools. But every once in a while, you do get a little bit, at the beginning, you get a little sidetracked and you just need a little SWAT to get you back on track again. So it's really nice. So, the system that we used was every 3 months you came into a meeting, and then 2 days once a year, which sort of got us all, back online and ready to rock and roll. And it did take us 3 years before we were able to do it completely on our own. But
right.
It was
that's right. That's what we say. We teach the 3 days: focus day, vision building 1, vision building day 2. Then we run your quarterlies, and we have a 2-day annual. So what I say to people is like, you run the level 10 meetings, the weekly meeting. I'll run everything else for 2 years, and then you can decide if you want to go on your own, or if you just love me so much you want me back. I'll be there. So,
want you back.
Yeah.
So what would be the tips you would give to people who maybe haven't considered US, never heard of it before, or have been procrastinating? What would be your advice to these family businesses?
First of all, I would track down your implementer and get them in for a 90-minute meeting, which is no obligation, no charge. In there, you will learn about EOS, a little bit about the implementer. You'll learn about the tools, and you'll learn about the process. From after that meeting, our objective is really to exchange information to the extent that now, at the end of that 90 minutes, you know if it's a good fit for you or not. Mm-hmm. So that would be probably the best first step. That doesn't cost you anything other than your leadership team's time.
Yeah. And I noticed that you brought along a couple of books here. And of course, if you're listening, you can't see this book, but one of the I thought these were great books, is Traction. So this sort of tells you the whole system here. If you don't want to spend 90 minutes, you can spend a week and read the book, right? To give you the process.
Right. So I brought Traction and Get a Grip. Yeah. So Traction, I give to clients all the time, and to potential clients, I give these out all the time. So Traction is written more like a manual, and Get a Grip is more story based, but equally effective in terms of getting a grip on Traction, which is the system that we implement. Right, is EOS Traction. Traction is the EOS system. That was the original, and they've been doing a great job in terms of writing additional books around process and people. So the library is expanding, and we're using it with all our clients as well.
Although it's great to have a library, it's great to have books, but you miss that human touch, or you talk about AI and everything that's coming into businesses, but really having someone to sit and talk to and to help you to get you back on track so you can get your traction is, I think, really important. That I know you can read and do this on your own, but we won't. We won't. As That's visionaries right. and founders of business, we're so busy doing other things. We have all these great ideas, but without a process and people to help us, we're never going to get anything completed.
That's right. And just reading and implementing systems, I think you're touching on too, is just the importance of having healthy leadership teams, which we said at the beginning. Like Pat Leccioni references that quite often throughout the EOS implementation process. We reference Pat Leccioni, and he talks about businesses, all successful organizations they're both healthy and smart.
Right.
And so I think in another book he says, not strategy, not finance, but ultimately it's teamwork that provides the ultimate competitive advantage. And I firmly believe that. I came out of a business where we had an amazing team. We leveraged that further with EOS, but the foundation was really strong in terms of having healthy teams. And
right.
So we really, really love working with each other.
So don't mean to put you on the spot here, but did you ever go back to some of those old companies and say, hey, this could have been a lot better if you'd implemented this, and I'd be more than happy to help you?
Yeah. So I've reached out to almost everybody that knows me and having to drink the Kool-Aid, So I just want to make their lives easier, honestly. It doesn't need to be that difficult. You're going to have those tough conversations, but like that owner said a couple weeks ago, it's just therapeutic. It's like, it's a load off. I know what I need. I know where the issue is.
Right.
Right. So it does, and around people, that's the toughest one. And I love people and I love teams. But for the greater good of the business, we just really need to because as another implementer once mentioned, what we tolerate, we endorse in our businesses.
True.
And so we just need to be really, we say, right people, right seats. We just got to have both.
Mm-hmm. And how long has EOS been around?
15 plus years, maybe even approaching 20. I don't actually know the exact date. But I think it feels like 20 years now.
Yeah, it's been a while. I know it's been a while, and it's really expanded. I was at a conference a couple weeks ago, and everybody was talking about EOS. So it's amazing how when we started many years ago, it wasn't that many people, except for the fact that when I was in the States and those 49 people I'll put up there, except for me in the corner. But now it's more across Canada and the US. Yeah. And it's amazing. So just to sum up, what's your one piece of advice you'd give to family business owners?
Rules of engagement. When it comes to the business, just understand it's a for-profit business, and we need to make hard decisions for the greater good. To the extent that the business fails for you not making that tough decision, now everything's going to be a problem. So put right things first and take care of that business. Everything else will take care of itself. Well,
that's really good advice. So thank you so much for coming in today, Jeff. And where could people reach you if they wanted to reach out and find out more, or have you come in and do a 90-minute session?
So I have a website. If you go to EOS Worldwide and look for me, Jeff Jantz, or jeff.jantz at EOS.
Can you spell your last name?
Yeah, Jans. So jeff.jantz at eosworldwide.com. That's my email.
Great. Well, thank you so much for coming in, and I hope our listeners all appreciated that information because, I've drank the EOS Kool-Aid many years ago, so I love it, and I'm glad you could come in and share it with our audience.
Well, thank you so much for the invitation. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you like this episode, subscribe to the Business of Family podcast on your favorite listening platform. You can also find BlueRoots on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. On the next show, I'll be back with another amazing guest who will inspire you with their family business insights. Until then, take care and keep it in the family. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered legal, tax, investment, or insurance advice. Before acting on any advice, please contact your personal or company advisors.